Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Tomatolito Show. And wow, Friday we have Clarissa Shields, Marie-Eve DeCare. What an awesome weekend for the fight fans! And 2 days ago, we end up having UFC 259 in what was billed as the card of the year. And as early a point as we find ourselves in 2021, we're 3 months in and people were already billing this as the card of the year. It was stacked from top to bottom, from prospects to new faces to old faces, some trying to save their careers and their jobs with the UFC or their contracts at the UFC. I mean, it was stacked from the early prelims to the prelims to the main card. Awesome display of fight ability, awesome display of talent through and through. And let's dissect it. Let's jump in. The early prelims was headlined by none other than Tim Elliott, UFC veteran Tim Elliott. You've seen him from the UFC Fighter to you name it. He's been in some of the biggest events throughout the years, and he's one that was trying to fight for his UFC contract. He moves on to 18-11-1. He ended up defeating Jordan Espinosa by decision, all 3 rounds. Gets his hand raised in the end. Also part of those early prelims, Sean Brady looked impressive again. Sean Brady's making a name for himself. He defeats none other than Jake Matthews. Jake Matthews is a machine, a wrestling machine. Sean Brady, 14-0, takes care of Jake Matthews, who's 17-5. He drops to 17-5. Sean Brady submits Matthews in impressive fashion in round 3. Amanda Lemos, she dispatches Renata Sousa, just knocked her out. First round knockout. That was another one that I was looking forward to. And it was just setting up, one fight was setting up the next fight and the next fight because of the talent, because of the fire that these fighters were stepping into the octagon with. But Tim Elliott headlines successfully. He's successful in his showing and headlines the early prelims. We move on to the preliminary card, and the first fight that we saw on there was none other than Kai Kara-France, who is French native, trains with Israel Adesanya and that team. He moves on to 22-9, and he wins his fight in impressive fashion. He dispatches of Rogerio Bontorin, knocks him out in round 1. Kai Kara-France, they always say don't blink, right? I think that's even his nickname, don't blink. And he looked amazing. What the hype behind Kai Kara-France back in the day was this. He was just fast-paced, and it was that approach of don't blink, don't look away whenever he steps in the octagon, because he's bound to do something special. And it kind of mellowed out there for a little bit. He had some tough goes there in the last couple of years, but here we go. He ends up proving every bit of that, and he knocks out Bontorin in impressive fashion. We move on the next fight right after that. Kai Kara-France, impressive showing, and sets up none other than Joseph Benavidez versus Askar Askarov. Askarov, decorated MMA fighter, 13-0 with 1 draw in his record. He improves to gets that 13th win with the decision win over Joseph Benavidez. It was a fairly one-sided affair for Askarov. Amazing wrestling, amazing ground game, and he defeats Joseph Benavidez. Unfortunate that Joseph Benavidez loses. Once again, he's had a storied career and a storied path with the UFC. And throughout his career with the UFC. So sad to see him lose, but impressive to see Askarov on his way up on the ascension of his career. The prelims were headlined by none other than Dominick Cruz. Dominick Cruz against Casey Kenny was a really tough, really highly contested fight. Casey Kenny showed up. It was mostly a stand-up fight. And you saw the angles, you saw the speed, you saw how uncomfortable Dominick Cruz was making Casey Kenny, and how he was making him miss because he just attacks from every bit of angle. He's got that awkward footwork, and he's looking good. He's a young 35-year-old Dominick Cruz is, because of the amount of years that he's been away from the sport, because of the injuries, because of the ailments and illnesses. He's been away, and so he hasn't taken the amount of damage that a typical 30-year-old and 35-year-old has taken. So Dominic Cruz improves to 23-3. He looks good. He looks young. He looks quick. And he comes away with the decision win. 23-3 is Dominic Cruz's record. Casey Kenny drops to 16-3. And then we hit the main event card, right? As if it wasn't enough, this would have been just these two, the early prelims and the prelims, just a headline with Dominic Cruz and that whole prelim card, Joseph Benavidez being part of it, Kai Kara France. That was enough. That was enough for a typical fight night or even its own pay-per-view event. But it was stacked. And we kicked off the pay-per-view portion of the event with none other than Thiago Santos finally coming back after numerous surgeries and setbacks with his knee injuries and injuries to his ligaments. Thiago Santos makes his return against Alexander Rakic, who is ascending in the light heavyweight division. And Thiago Santos loses. He looked okay, but he did hesitate quite a bit to generate his attack and his game plan and to execute his game plan. Alexander Rakic, stand-up game, very strong, and he is on the way up on the light heavyweight division. He's looking good. This is the third light heavyweight title contender that he has defeated. So he beats Thiago Santos. He defeated Anthony Smith in his last showing by way of decision. Anthony Smith challenged John Jones for the title. And Anthony Smith, we'll bring him up here in a little bit again because he was brought up in the conversation. And then he defeats Volkan Ozdemir, who challenged Daniel Cormier when Daniel Cormier was a champion. So with Thiago Santos, who challenged John Jones, and that's where he suffered most of his injuries in the past, the knee injuries by way of leg kicks. This is the third title contender that Rakic has defeated now. He's in line. He should be in line, maybe a fight away from title contention. So he's legit. Alexander Rakic, all action, good stand-up fighter. He puts his punches and his attacks very well together. So we move on to that. The next fight, Islam Makhachev, is the one that made a lot of headlines and was a big talk of the night. He improves to 19-1, defeats a game Drew Dober, and Drew Dober, he's looked reinvigorated in the last few fights. He looks like a brand new fighter in his last new fights. He's discovered this new light. He fights with this new fire behind him, and just goes in there and has fun. Strong wrestling, strong fighter, strong ground game. Makhachev just made him look elementary. He controlled Drew Dober and ends up submitting him in round 3. The strength is just a different level, and what they're calling him the little brother of Khabib, but he looked awesome. And if the lightweight division was not messy enough as far as the rankings and stacked, I guess we could say, it's one that I've been so excited about in the last year. He just threw his name in the hat now, and he's up to fight anybody. I mean, he could go against Rafael Dos Anjos. He could go against Tony Ferguson. He could go, you name it. I mean, the talks were there. The conversations were there that he could possibly get a match with Tony Ferguson and fight the guy that was supposed to fight Khabib. Now that Daniel Cormier was making the comment, he's imagined that talk that the little brother is the one that handles Tony Ferguson instead of Khabib. Awesome showing by Makhachev. I can't wait to see what he does in his next fight and as he continues to move up in those rankings. Then we get into the first of the 3 title fights that were scheduled for that main event, and that was between Aljo Sterling and Peter Yan. Now, good fight through and through, mostly a stand-up fight. Peter Yan's power was the big talk of the fight, and it was the big deciding factor to me in which I thought Peter Yan was winning the fight. Aljo looked good when he came out. First round, even the second round, he looked good, putting his punches well. His attacks, he was pushing the action, making Peter Yan step back. He was kicking, he was punching. Everything was very precise and very tight. His game was on point for those first 2 rounds, and Peter Yan just weathered the storm, did some damage himself. By round 3, he started shifting the action and the momentum in his favor, and And he continues on. Peter Yan, even though those 2 rounds, I'm not going to say they were landslides for Aljo, but Aljo looked like it was a heavier output that he was putting out there. Peter Yan was hurting Aljamain Sterling. And I think the fact that Aljo came out so fast ended up gassing him. You started seeing him gas a little bit. He was dropping to the ground a lot quicker. He was getting dropped a lot quicker. And Peter Yan was just consistently moving forward and dealing with the storm, weathering the storm, and then he would end up pushing the momentum and pushing the action for large portions of each round. It ends up in a DQ. Aljo's knee is down, his hands are up, but his knee is down, and Peter Yan throws a knee to the face. The fight is delayed. Aljamain Sterling is dazed and confused and trying to get up, and he couldn't. You see him almost start tearing up as he's there. They're talking to him. They stop the fight, essentially, and the title changes hands by way of disqualification. This is not the WWE. This is not any other organization in which they say, hey, yeah, you lose the fight, but the title cannot change hands by way of DQ. It changed hands, and it's a crazy rule that it shouldn't have. But Aljamain Sterling didn't do anything wrong. He showed up to fight. He was game. He didn't do anything wrong. He's the one that got caught with the illegal shot. Peter Yan, as a champion, needs to know the rules because he's the champ representing the organization, and he didn't abide by it. He ended up violating the rule, ends up hurting the opponent. He gets disqualified and hands over his title in ugly fashion, right? Because nobody wants to see a fight be decided because of a DQ or by a landslide judging when the judges just score these and it's just a weird card that they end up turning in, and you're like, what fight were these guys watching? That's always ugly. It's always better when the fighters are the ones that decide. They leave it all out there, and they're the ones that decide the end result. Peter Yan is a former champion now. Aljamain Sterling is your new bantamweight champion. Regardless of what's going on in the commentary and the negative press, positive press, whatever it is, all the drama and all that, it's only going to serve as build up for their rematch. I really believe they should be rematching. They got to run this back. I thought Peter Yan was going to walk away with this victory. I think he was going to walk away with the decision. I think Aljamain is strong enough to where he would have seen the fight through to the end, even though he looked really gassed. I think he could have finished the entire fight, and I think Peter Yan would have walked away with the decision. Who knows? But the hype's going to be there behind the rematch. It's going to be a good build-up. And for now, hey, ignore all the commentary, or if that's your thing, then get into it, But it is what it is. Right now, it's not going to change. Aljo's your new bantamweight champion. Peter Yan's your former champion. And it sucks that the title had to change hands in that fashion. We move on to the second in the co-main event, the second of the title fights that night, and that was none other than your champ, your only active champ at the moment, which is Amanda Nunes, and she was defending her featherweight title, put it on the line against Megan Anderson, and she submits. She stood her ground. Megan Anderson was trying to formulate an attack by way of stand-up. I think she connected a kick with Amanda Nunes. Amanda Nunes ended up finding her space. The height, the reach was supposed to be the big factor. Amanda Nunes solved the puzzle immediately, takes the fight to the ground, ends up submitting Megan Anderson in quick fashion. In a matter of a few minutes, the fight was over. Amanda Nunes keeps her title, walks out. The champ is impressive as ever, and who knows what's in the future for her. I think the only one that would possibly be a challenge to her at the moment would be Shevchenko. Other than that, I don't think anybody else. I think she's cleared out the divisions, right? I mean, I don't see anybody else that could challenge her, that could give her a challenge. I think Shevchenko would be the only one. But who knows? I'm sure somebody else is up in the rankings moving up, and we'll keep an eye out to see what Amanda Nunes does. She has cemented her legacy not just as one of the greatest women fighters of all time by way of MMA, but as one of the greatest women fighters across the fight game landscape, and one of the greatest MMA fighters. Not just women, but one of the greatest MMA fighters through and through. Amanda Nunes is impressive to see. And it's awesome to tune in and watch her fights just to see what it is that she's going to do and how she's going to dispatch of her opponents, how she solves the puzzles quickly and it's impressive. It's awesome to see. From there, Amanda Nunes walks out with her title, successfully defends her title, and keeps that title going of champ. She's the only active champ defending those two titles. And somebody that was trying to get on that champ list was Izzy Adesanya. In the main event, we see Israel Adesanya moving up to light heavyweight to challenge the new champion, Jan Blachowicz. Blachowicz making the first defense of the light heavyweight title. And the talk was the weight, the talk was the size difference, the strength difference. Israel Adesanya had fought at higher weights when he participated in kickboxing. He had fought heavyweights. He had fought light heavyweights. But nonetheless, in MMA, he was undefeated, 20-0 with a perfect record, middleweight champ, cleaning out that middleweight division. And Jan Blachowicz, he's fought in other organizations. The Polish power is real, and you saw it. You saw it displayed. Israel Adesanya, his striking seems to be his go-to, right? Everybody knows Adesanya's game is striking. He's next level. He attacks from different angles, from weird angles, and creates more problems for the opponent than anybody of recent memory. His hands, his feet, he comes from all angles, right? And he started doing that, except that every time Jan Blachowicz was connecting, he was connecting with strength. And it was evident. The fight was fairly close. As far as the stand-up game goes, you were seeing higher output from Adesanya to strength and power punches from Blachowicz, damage being done by Blachowicz. And then as the fight led to the later rounds, especially round 4, round 5, Blachowicz started taking the game to the ground, and he was easily taking Adesanya down to the ground. The strength is what came into play. He was stronger than Adesanya. He was ground and pounding. He was controlling him on the ground, and that started cementing the fight for Blachowicz. Who was supposed to win this fight? The ideal story would be Adesanya moves up, as he is just transcending the sport of MMA, and he is just a household name. He's made himself into a household name in quick fashion and in impressive fashion by the way that he gets rid of his opponents and the way that he wins his fights. The story was supposed to be Adesanya winning this. It would have been a transcendent story that he conquers another division. The sky's the limit for this kid. But when you really look at this, it's similar to what we saw talking about boxing, similar to what we saw in December. The man at that division was Jan Blachowicz. He walked in as a champion. This is his division. He was supposed to do what he did. He's supposed to defend his throne. Somebody's trying to challenge the throne, especially coming up a division to challenge my throne. I'm supposed to defend my title and my division. This is my division. Go back to your division. We saw this in boxing in December, right? Callum Smith was supposed to win the fight. He was supposed to defend his throne, defend the division when Canelo moved up in weight to challenge a 168-pounder from middleweight. Canelo came out victorious, and the story got even better, right? Because Canelo was just trying to unify the 168-pound division. Here, Jan Blachowicz did his job. He defends the throne. Now it looks like we'll be seeing him against Glover Teixeira, and I don't see Jan Blachowicz being threatened by Glover. I don't see him in any danger other than maybe the ground game. Other than that, in stand-up, I think Jan Blachowicz is gonna probably run through Glover fairly quickly, maybe within the first 3 rounds. Other than that, I don't see really anybody else that would be much of a challenge. Alexander Rakic has really good stand-up. He's moving up. He'll probably get a title shot fairly quickly as well. But I think Jan Blachowicz has a really good shot at defending this title for several fights to come and cement himself as one of the greats of the UFC to hold the light heavyweight title. He defends. He does his job. Israel Adesanya gets his first defeat at the hands of Blachowicz, and I think he's going to be moving back down to continue. I think I want to say it was the post conference where he said it. Maybe it was a side interview, but he said he's going to continue ruling that middleweight division with an iron fist, with a black iron fist, and just keep decimating opponents down there. It was awesome to see him. These mega fights, when they build themselves, it's awesome to see somebody taking a chance. I think the line that they kept using was "Dare to be great," or maybe it was Adesanya himself who was tweeting it. "Dare to be great." Of course, when you come up short, the critics, the negative comments, all the haters come out and they start pointing the finger and laughing and mocking. But if he would have pulled it off, even more history, even more impressive. So it's awesome that there's fighters like that exist, that are willing to take chances. And it was cool to see. And for Jan Blachowicz, awesome that he defended his throne. And now he gets his first official defense of the light heavyweight title after being a new champ. He is the man in that division at this moment. Awesome UFC 259 card, stacked from top to bottom, and I can't wait to see what the next event is. The next event that we got coming up is going to be on the 13th, and that's going to be Leon Edwards. Finally, after so many delays, Leon Edwards is going to be back in there against Belal Muhammad, who just came away with the victory. I think 4 or 6 weeks ago he had a victory, and he got right into this match, into the main event. Thanks to that victory, thanks to his showing, and also by downfall, Kazmat Chimaev, who once again had to pull out because of the continued ailments by way of COVID. So that comes up on the 13th. Leon Edwards, we see him back in there, and that should be a fun card as well. I believe Dan Eig's going to be part of that card. He's always all on action. Eric Anders is going to be part of that card. Middleweight Eric Anders, he's always fun to watch. Other than that, listen, stack card. I cannot wait to see if they put another card like this together. But as it stands, this is quite possibly the best card of 2021. So I leave you all with that. Thank you again for tuning in to the Tomatolito Show, and tune in to the next episode. Talk to you all soon.